Hey guys, welcome to our next episode of the Madison Mountain View. Today we have a very special guest, Nat. So if you would like to take a moment and introduce yourself, we would appreciate that.
Hi everyone, my name is Nat Dupree. I'm the co-founder and CEO of BunchCut. We make it easier for teams to manage visual content at work.
Very cool. So just to kind of dive into that, I actually listened, not to sound creepy, but I actually listened to a podcast that you did a while back, and you talked about how you differed from Pinterest and various other photo sharing startups on the scene. So just to kind of go back into that, like how do you guys differ, and kind of why did you decide to go that route?
Absolutely. So maybe I'll start with a bit of background about this opportunity. I'm a big photo buff, and I was always taking tons and tons of photographs. At a wedding, I was the one who was posting all of the albums, and I recognized that, we're in a spray and pray photo culture. This is shown by the storage market, which has exploded to $42 billion, and because of the 4 trillion photos that are stored online. My background is as a marketer, and I was always trying to manage visual content at work. But the way in which I was doing so was over WhatsApp, over email, using Pinterest. My designers were using Adobe Cloud. Everyone was always using a different platform. So finding and sorting through images or videos at work was always a pain. And getting feedback on visual content at work was always really difficult. And everyone was always using a different type of platform for that. So that's kind of the inspiration behind it. You asked how we're different to Pinterest. Pinterest is a discovery platform. It's a social media platform. So the idea on Pinterest is that you spend hours and hours of time sorting through images, pinning images, sharing images. It's for people who have a lot of time. 80% of the user base is female, and there's a big interior design and a big sort of wedding component to that. We are different. We want you to get off our site as quickly as possible. The idea is that we're a decision-making tool for visual content, so we allow you to quickly identify the top images at work and to make a decision about them in a timely manner. And this is because 1/3 of my time at work was always spent sorting and finding through images, sharing them with ad agencies, sharing them with designers, creating mood boards, and there wasn't a tool with which I could do it very quickly. So it's Slack, because we're a work productivity tool for the workforce, whereas Pinterest is just a discovery platform.
Gotcha. Cool. So kind of just from the productivity perspective, I was looking into it more because I'm still working on being more productive, and so it's a new space for me. And so I was looking into it, and apparently 75% of companies now are encouraging people to bring their own computers and kind of use their own devices. And so from a productivity perspective, do you think that this is a good trend? Do you think that it increases productivity, or do you think that having a work device and a home device is more productive overall?
Well, I don't know if it makes a difference because of everything being in the cloud these days. So, you can log on to something at work and log on to something at home, and it doesn't matter which device you're using. If you can access the same software from both of these devices in different places, I think that's where the world is going. You can access your Dropbox folders at home or at work or on your mobile device or on your iPad. Similarly, that's how we envision people working with BunchCut. It doesn't matter where they're logging in from, whether it's on their own device, whether it's at home, or whether it's on the go on a mobile phone. They can still do the same things as if they were just on one device. Because the reality is we have so many different devices these days, and trying to put everything on one desktop at work is just not realistic because we work so much at home anyway.
Yeah.
So the topic fascinates me on so many levels, because I think just getting marketers and getting brands to understand this taxonomy and the fact that we are really living and operating in this visual kind of ecosystem in a sense. When you look at, even within the context of millennials with respect to whether it's even less so Pinterest, but certainly Instagram and Snapchat, that it's all very much visual based. So I got a couple of questions, but one is, talk a little bit about how how your solution, if at all, but just if not, just kind of your vision of how we can be better listeners with respect to kind of from a visual standpoint. It's all very easy to be doing listening and kind of what I call commitment to conversation from a text standpoint and a tweet standpoint, but how kind of we can get much smarter at being able to understand what is being said about us or what is being posted about us that is visual, that can actually help us plug into, you know, the brand itself and the brand health and the evolution of that brand.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm going to answer the question correctly, but my initial thought is that it's kind of difficult right now because a lot of visual content that is posted does not have metadata attached to it. If you post something on Facebook and post comment, it's kind of that comment has to be attached to that image. It's very difficult to search for that relevant image. Instagram is doing a better job at it because you can hashtag things, but those are still manual tags versus auto tags. And the search functionality on Instagram is not great, but it's still better than a lot of other content management or not social media platforms because you can search by hashtag. But I think you bring up a good point, and that's something that we are going to build into our app. Making sense of meta tags and using them in a smarter way is something that is needed in this type of industry, in this world. When you Google something now, say you Google New York images will show up, but the most relevant images are not show up to the top. And in my mind, the images that relate to you and relate to your friends should come up to the top and filter to the top first. So in a roundabout way, I guess I'm thinking, you know, this is relevant for our platform because the more search functionality we build in, the more tagging we build in, the more metadata engines we build in, the easier it will be for you to search this content and for it to make more sense to you. I don't know if that was answering your question, but if not, let me know. But that's kind of how I saw it.
You know, I think about I was an early user, as I'm sure you were, of Flickr, and I remember that even
user of Flickr, but I've since got to know it.
But I mean, even with Flickr, it was quite cumbersome and difficult to upload an entire album. And to do that in a way, and then it was easy to upload the album. You could drag 150 photos in, you know, from a folder, but the ability to actually tag them, you know, and put in essentially the right information that would help from a meta tag standpoint, that was the cumbersome part. And to put a caption, you know, caption an individual, you know, other than what, like, you know, Cape Town vacation, right? It was really hard to be able to get very specific and to auto tag. You know, we've seen smarter kind of like with face recognition with respect to faces, but not something like, for example, Table Mountain being able to kind of slice and dice that photo almost automatically. And I think that's going to be a huge boon and a huge opportunity for, you know, for every participant in this ecosystem to be able to do a better job of being able to, you know, with permission, dissect a photo.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And what you bring up about Flickr is the reason I never used it. Yes, it provided, you know, a great platform for this, but in my mind, it was not useful and it was too difficult to use. So with that in mind, that's kind of, we've built our platform with that issue in mind, and everyone always says it's very easy to use. So I think you bring up a very good point.
How much are you going to be relying on the clients and the employees to be providing the metadata versus pulling it in from the photo sources?
Good question. So now there are two ways to upload metadata. You can tag it yourself in a similar way to how Instagram works. And if you use our Chrome or Firefox extension, the source automatically uploads. So that's not metadata, but it's provided automatically. We are going to be building out a lot more advanced functionality on capturing metadata from the source itself and making smart metadata recommendations as well. So that is something that we see. I'd see probably 70% of our posts will start being authored posts.
Very cool. So if you could work with any brand out of curiosity, do you have one in mind, or is it kind of more of a general, is it more of a general product that could apply to anybody?
Gosh, that's a hundreds of brands we'd want to work with, and it's more of a general product that would apply to many different people and to many different companies. The opportunity in general applies to brands remarkably because brands manage 15 million pieces of visual content each day, and visual content improves their ROI dramatically. The stats show that articles with images get 94% views than those without. And with content marketing being such a big factor for these brands going forward, this is where we see the big opportunity. So it's tough for me to identify one, but if I were to look at verticals, fashion is one. I was at Net-a-Porter, and I spent some time working at Richemont and LVMH, and these types of brands or conglomerates, I see a huge need for this because they are so visual focused. I also spent some time at Colgate-Palmolive. That type of company is a lot more analytical. Yes, they still work with a lot of visual content for packaging and for their ads, but at the end of the day, the decision is always more of an analytical manner. But if you look at the fashion industry, the luxury industry, the art world, visuals drive decisions there. You can just put one image up on a screen and it changes everything. It changes a whole campaign. I still, I'm not a huge magazine reader, but I still buy Vogue and flip through it, and those ads at the beginning of that magazine always excite me because they're so beautiful and visual. So it's hard to distinguish one brand, but the fashion industry in general, the publishing industry, there's a documentary that talks about Anna Wintour. You see her walking into a room deciding on images for the cover shot. In my mind, in 5 years' time, that whole process is going to be digitalized. Maybe it's not Anna Wintour or the next Anna, people underneath her who are working really hard to get that perfect cover shot. To get one perfect image takes time. It looks very simple in that video, in that movie, but there's a whole industry built around that. So that's kind of, in general, my vision for where this is going.
That's great, and we actually have about a minute left, so I just maybe final question from us. Just a question about Creative Commons and permissions, and obviously it's kind of the Wild West to a degree, but just some thoughts on your side about how you're gonna, or how you might approach that or solve for that idea, especially when brands go out to consumers to create or to volunteer images, etc.
Yes, very good comment. The quick solution to this was to bring in the sourcing feature. So when you drag and drop, as I mentioned, when you drag and drop from a browser, the source automatically appears next to the image. So in a similar way to how Pinterest works, except we're not encouraging you to click out of our site and go to that site. It's not an e-commerce platform, and that's not the idea right now. But image rights management is something that is front of mind and something we're going to work closely with brands and companies to get right, because it changes. It depends on who you speak to. There are these in the creative world, attribution is extremely important. But looking at Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, people just take images every day from other people. So it's something that we have to get right, and there's a delicate balance between the two. Right now it's sourcing, but we will probably build in an image rights management type of feature going forward.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Nat, for joining us, and definitely check out BunchCut. We'll be posting the link to this episode and also the link to BunchCut, so be sure to sign up. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks.